Daniel stood up at his parents' anniversary dinner and told 40 people our marriage was over. I finished my wine. I thanked his mother for the meal. I left. 9 hours later, his bank called me. Not my lawyer, his bank. By breakfast, Daniel was standing at my front door asking me to come back. Before I explain why, tell me where you're watching this from and what time it is where you are right now. I want to see how far this one travels. My name is Lily Harper. I'm 34. I spent 8 years married to a man who was very good at one thing: making people believe he built everything himself. He didn't. Daniel's parents' 35th anniversary. 40 guests, a few investors he'd been courting for months, and Vanessa Cole, seated 2 tables away, dressed like she'd been invited on purpose. He didn't wait for dessert. He stood, raised his glass, and told the room our marriage was over. He said he'd already had papers drawn up. He said he'd found someone who actually believed in his vision. He didn't look at me when he said it. He looked at Vanessa. I want you to notice something here, because it matters later. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't give him the reaction he'd built this entire dinner around. I finished my wine. I thanked his mother. I left. Daniel watched me go, waiting for the scene. He didn't get one. That bothered him more than anything I could have screamed. He thought he'd won the moment he sat back down. He had no idea what he'd just started.
8 years ago, Daniel's first business failed. His credit was ruined. No bank would touch him. Mine was clean, so I signed. I co-secured his first business loan. I became the primary administrator on every account Harper Contracting has ever opened. He always said he'd clean that up later, take my name off, make it official, his, alone. Later never came. Removing me would have triggered a full refinance, a new credit review. His lawyer told him it wasn't urgent. Daniel filed it under later and moved on to more interesting things. Like Vanessa. He forgot one detail on his way out the door that night. He needed my signature to keep his empire standing. And he was about to find that out at 8 the next morning. The bank didn't call about a mistake. They called about a wire transfer Daniel initiated the night before, right after the toast, right after our marriage is over, for a commercial property. I asked whose name was on the purchase agreement. Cole Design Studio. Vanessa's boutique. Read that again. He tried to use company funds, backed by credit I built, to buy his mistress a building? On the same night he humiliated me in front of his own family? He left dinner thinking he had won. He had no idea he'd just handed me the only thing I needed. I did not authorize the transfer. I did not refuse it either. I requested a compliance review. Legal. Quiet. Completely within my rights as the administrator he never bothered to remove. I did not touch a single dollar that wasn't mine to touch. I did not take anything from anyone. I simply stopped being invisible on paper I had signed my own name to 8 years earlier. That review opened a door Daniel never expected me to find. 8 months of company funds, quietly diverted. Gifts, investments, all pointing toward Vanessa. All timed to exactly when Daniel started calling our marriage complicated. I called a friend from law school, a financial attorney. Not to sue. Not yet. I wanted to understand exactly how much power I actually held. Turns out, more than either of us expected. And Daniel's biggest deal of his career, the one that would finally make him the biggest name in 3 counties, was set to close in 48 hours. Through the same account I now controlled. Without my signature, the deal dies. Investors walk. And Daniel becomes, in 48 hours, the man whose empire collapsed in front of the exact same people who watched him announce his big new life. He didn't know any of that yet, but he was about to. By breakfast, the actual next morning, not some exaggeration for a headline, Daniel was standing at my door. He didn't mention the marriage. He didn't say Vanessa's name once. He asked me to sign the release form. He said we could figure out the rest later. Later. That word again.
I let him stand there while I laid it out, calmly. The transfer, the 8 months of diverted funds, the building with his mistress's name on it, the loan disclosures with mine. I watched the confidence leave his face in real time. Was he panicking about the marriage he ended 12 hours earlier? Or was he panicking about the deal he could no longer close without me? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I already knew. I told him what later actually looked like now. I would become a legal equity partner. Not a name quietly sitting on paperwork, but a controlling stake as the condition for releasing the funds, along with a settlement that finally reflected 8 years of what I actually built, not what he'd spent a year pretending I hadn't. He had no leverage left. Refuse, and he loses the deal, the investors, and possibly faces questions about how those loans were used. Agree, and he keeps his business, but he never fully owns it alone again. He signed. Word travels fast in a small business community. By the following week, 2 of Daniel's own investors had quietly asked around about the wife who used to run the books. One of them called me directly, not Daniel. Vanessa found out the boutique she'd been promised was never really Daniel's to give. Without unrestricted access to company funds, the gift disappeared. Not long after, so did she. Daniel tried one more time. He showed up at my office. Not my home, my office, hoping a public setting would make me more agreeable. I met him in the lobby, calmly. "You're doing this here because you think I'll fold in front of people," I said. "I signed the compliance review at 8 in the morning alone. What makes you think an audience changes anything now?" He didn't have an answer for that either. Months later, Daniel's mother tried to host another family dinner. Peacemaking, she called it. Daniel told relatives beforehand that I'd come around, that I'd be signing full control back to him once things settled. I hadn't agreed to any of that. Nobody had asked me. I went anyway, because silence at that point becomes someone else's story instead of yours. I stood at that table and said one sentence. I haven't agreed to anything, and I'm not signing anything back. Daniel's face told the room everything his mouth wouldn't. His mother asked, quietly, why he told everyone something that wasn't true. He didn't answer that one either. He just said, I thought she'd come back once the business was stable again. There it was. Not one word about the marriage. Not one word about missing me. Just the business. That was the moment his own family understood what I'd understood 9 hours after that first dinner. Daniel kept the company, smaller now, and no longer his alone. He rents equipment for the jobs that used to be automatic. He turned down 2 contracts he couldn't finance without my signature. I run my stake in Harper Contracting quietly. I don't need to raise my voice in that boardroom. I never did. Daniel wanted a clean ending the night he stood up at that dinner. What he got instead was a partner he could never fire, in a business he could never fully call his own again. Because some things, once you build them together, you don't get to walk away from alone. He told me it was over, so I let it be over. On paper, he still needed my signature for.